Over to the big guy, the president, the boss, the head honcho, or as we call him, Tux. Mr. President, if you would make your report, sir, please.
Thank you so much, Kate. First, I want to say good evening to everybody present here today. With our protocol already established, I would like to welcome each and every one of you to our 95th Annual General Meeting. In particular, our guest speaker, Ambassador Carlos Moreno, U.S. Ambassador to the Belize. Thank you very much. Some 12 months ago, I accepted the position as the President of the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, a position that I truly acknowledge as a great responsibility to lead an organization whose mandate is to serve its members without fear or favor, while simultaneously operating as a self-sustainable, non-profit, non-partisan organization. This year marks the Chamber's 95th Annual General Meeting, indicating the significant resilience of this organization. We have not wavered from our purpose, which has been to prepare and represent the entire business sector in industry, commerce, and service. With membership spanning the entire country, ranging from micro-business to the large corporations, the work of the Chamber remains focused to ensure that we adequately represent all sectors of the country. In order to remain focused on our purpose, we have developed our CCC philosophy, connecting our members, capacitating our membership, and championing their causes. Our mission statement reminds us that, quote, as the voice of the business community, we are the country's leading advocate for private enterprise, promoting economic vitality and quality of life in Belize. Surely a duty and responsibility that the Chamber management and its executive takes as a great responsibility in its overall duties of leading the Chamber. As a body, the business community is the largest taxpayer in the country of Belize. This is why we take great interest and have a right to know how our tax dollars are being spent. Accountability and transparency by our government is the least that should be expected. Over the years, the Chamber has collaborated with our social partners on issues that are integral to transparency and accountability. For example, the absence of a functioning Public Accounts Committee means that there is no review and report of how matters are being spent, monies are being spent, and the necessary corrective measures implemented. The Auditor General's Office must also be given the autonomy and access to records to ensure timely audit report as is mandated by law. Good governance and fiscal responsibility are critical to our continued development and to the national economic image we create and project domestically and internationally. As a small emerging economy, we must make every effort to promote nationality as opposed to the divisive partisan politics that is destroying our country, as it appears to be embedded in every aspect of our society. We have become a people that seem to have no choice but to take or to be considered either red or blue. We seem to have become a country and people that are politically divided, very much to our detriment. In preparing this speech, I reviewed the address made by our last president of last year's AGM, where she claims to have learned many things in her 4 years as president. The first was, and I quote, "We haven't gotten past the political divide yet, but that we have to if we are to develop as a nation," unquote. Unfortunately, in my opinion, that statement remains unchanged as I stand here today delivering my speech. The Constitution of the Chamber clearly classifies the organization as one with the mandate to, quote, better serve its members while operating as a self-sustained, non-profit, and non-political organization. In this current climate, the non-political part of that statement is one that the Chamber has found to be most challenging in its effort to foster and advocate for a solid partnership with the government. Despite this partnership with government, the Chamber will challenge that partner when it feels there is an issue that may deter or impede business development. However, it appears that whenever there is such a challenge, the first response by the general divide is to take a political stance instead of listening to the message and the challenge. The Chamber has always challenged the government on issues and will continue to challenge as it sees necessary. This is done via direct communication with the Chamber and government, as well as via the efforts of the social partners. Such challenges have included, and not limited to, issues such as the Ninth Amendment, an autonomous and self-supported Auditor General's Office, the reconstruction and strengthening of the Public Accounts Committee, the establishment of the 13th Senator, which was passed by the House of Representatives, and most recently the Alba Petro-Carib Bill. In all the challenges, the Chamber maintains that we need to be a law-abiding society and that there must be the full respect for the rule of law across all spectrums. In addition to good governance, transparency and accountability, government responsibility in relation to the business sector is to create an enabling environment in which we can do business. This can be achieved via infrastructure development, road and transportation systems to enable the movement of people, reduce bureaucracy in the public sector, reduction in business costs through tax reform, and the removal of corruption. Working along with the municipal bodies is also important in fostering good relationship with local government. One such example is the current effort initiated by the Chamber to find a better way of determining trade license fees. The Trade License Review Initiative, currently in process, has as its objective to review the current trade license regime and propose new methods or options for calculating and levying trade license fees in each municipality. The method to be selected should be fair, easy to calculate, predictable, transparent, sustainable, and must be able to cover the financial requirements of the respective municipalities. Also important to this review is for the rate not to be burdensome to the business sector, while giving the municipalities fiscal space in which to operate. With the current method of 25% assessment of rental value, some clear disadvantages are: 1, the rate is too high, reflecting 1/3 or 3 months of actual rental costs. 2, the discretionary application of the rate in some municipalities. 3, disincentive of businesses to improve their property. And 4, the discretionary application of the rental value in many cases. Recommendations are more in line with establishing a flat rate based on income bands and business categories. This review continues with the joint effort of the Chamber, the municipal bodies, and the Ministry of Local Government. Public-private partnership, PPP, as it is commonly referred, is also a truly enabling vehicle for relationship building between the government and the private sector. Through an initiative between the IDB and the government, the establishing of a PPP framework has commenced with workshops and follow-up meetings held to evaluate the potential for public-private partnership in Belize and to define the needs to realize such potential in short, medium, and long term. As mentioned in these workshops and consultations, good governance structure is critical to successful PPP. Management, as well as the private sector interests and the public sector good governance, transparency, decision-making, and equity of partnership. Without interest or purpose or response from the private sector, there is no PPP. Once again, the importance of good public-private sector dialogue is of utmost importance. Another key component of dialogue between public and private sector is the creating of the Economic Development Council by the Prime Minister a few years ago to enable a good understanding of both public and private sector challenges. While confronted with many common frustrations, both sectors do deserve the same outcome and therefore do need to work in harmony to achieve the objectives of this relationship initiative. With issues such as tax reform and transportation development as priorities, and the recent restructuring exercise of the Council, much still needs to be done in terms of realizing true accomplishment by this committee. As reported by a representative on the committee, other matters such as visa waivers, immigration and labor issues, the establishment of a tax review committee, the drafting of tax reform terms of references, border protections, packaging and labeling bills, and a transportation master plan, among others, was most recently discussed in that committee. As mentioned in the initial terms of reference, this committee reports directly to the Prime Minister and as such can be considered the ultimate means of advice and proposals resulting from dialogue, research, and policy papers submitted direct to the Prime Minister. When considering the importance of true dialogue, it is unfortunate to note that we apparently no longer debate and discuss important matters relating to the development of our beloved country. Instead, we seem to more disagree, simply because of the current political divide mentioned earlier. While it is frustrating and at sometimes entertaining to listen to talk shows and media propaganda on which side we are apparently on, the true aspect of the message is almost always disregarded, not to mention the disrespectful way in which political propaganda machinery carry on daily in insulting and disrespecting anyone who has a different opinion. All we need to do really is to listen to the highest level of Parliament in our House of Representatives, and we will clearly see how even our elected representatives have no respect for each other at times. Not to mention the cheering gallery, the cheerleading gallery, that participates simply to emphasize and cheer on the rhetoric that takes place. The true debate is hardly ever the reason for participation. Such dialogue will certainly not carry us too far in really understanding what are our real obstacles in the economic development of our country. In my view, these propaganda machineries do reflect the true message of the relevant political parties, as well as the leadership of those parties. The continued discussion of who did what and how it now approves the actions of the ruling government is also something that needs to end. Two wrongs do not make a right. What we need is a long-term plan for our country's development, and not the continued 5-year plan of political parties who simply work towards becoming re-elected, and the continued social aspect of keeping the people dependent on governments. A journalist once wrote that cronyism is a well-dressed figure of corruption, which immediately poses a problem in democracy. It encourages those in charge of the rule to change those rules when it does not work for them, which ultimately erodes transparency and accountability. Throughout my growing years in this country, it has been well established that the government of the day helps those who consider supporters and sponsors of their party. This practice has been a significant contributory factor to the division and build-up of animosity among the Belizean people, as well as widespread cronyism and erosion of our democracy. Elected area representatives, in my view, simply work towards maintaining the support of the people in their area to garner votes. The work is never about the true development and long-term plan of that area. The sharing of political handouts is a true example of this behavior. While I'm not a politician, and this is no political campaign speech, I'm a Belizean and a voter in this country who continue to see where the lack of development still exists due to the political divide. The long-reaching arm of the system is the erosion of economic development and the true development of the Belizean people. Our government's main concern should be addressing and promoting our economic vitality. Improving our reputation to investors can look at the indicators such as the World Bank Doing Business Report, which measures the ease of doing business, dealing with contracts, permits, registering of property, establishing businesses, getting credit, protection of investors, paying taxes, and just to name a few. All these indicators are vital to the way of doing business. The ease of starting a business is measured by the procedures officially required in practice by an entrepreneur to start up and operate a business, as well as the time and cost to complete the procedure. The protection of investors is important to raise capital required to grow, innovate, diversify, and ultimately to compete. If the law does not protect shareholders, investors may be reluctant to provide the necessary funding required in purchasing shares or simply setting up new initiatives and investments in our country, something that surely generates jobs and opportunities for our people. Taxes do fund public services and infrastructure and are crucial to any economy. However, the level of taxes need to be carefully chosen, avoiding complexity in the tax system. The tax net needs to be broadened, and evasion of taxes need to be addressed. According to the World Bank Doing Business Report again, and as I am certain we all know, economies where it is more difficult and costly to pay taxes, the larger share of the economic activity ends up in the informal sector, where businesses tend to pay little or no tax at all. As an advocate for the reduction in corruption, the Chamber continues to lobby for electronic government, as well as the continued reform of our land registry and the process of registering property. In order to be competitive in the global economy, we need to look at our competitiveness and the overall cost of doing business. The Chamber has and continues to advocate for a comprehensive tax reform exercise to be carried out with a view to simplify our tax structure. As leaders of our country and members of the Chamber, we need to engage collectively to ensure that the quality of life for our citizens is improved and that businesses are sustainable and remain as effective contributors to the economic growth and development of our young nation. We have a country blessed with an abundance of natural resources and hard-working people, and we need to be smart to ensure that the resources are not depleted due to political aspirations, but by way of proper investments and infrastructure that will benefit not just a few, but all of us. The last 12 months of my presidency also taught me a few things. One in particular is that none of the great work of our Chamber could and cannot be done without the hard work of our CEO, Mrs. Kim Aikman, the Executive Council you see here before you, and the staff of the Chamber who works diligently to ensure that the objectives of the Chamber remains their priority. As a committee and management of the Chamber, we continue to meet on a regular basis to address the issues facing our membership and the business environment as a whole. We remain committed to advocate on your behalf and to remain completely engaged and respectful to our elected government and opposition to ensure that the public and private sector partnership that is so vital to the growth of our nation remains in constant focus. I also need to recognize at this point our business senator and past president who continues to put in the work, proper research, dialogue, and good representation on the views of the Chamber and the business sector. The senator continues to contribute to the democratic process of our country, where we should be able to form our views with respect and in a fashion that is reflective of the ideas and intentions of the business sector. While his tone might not always be too welcoming, we all do get emotional at times in our presentation. Even our highest elected representatives do so at times. The Chamber also remains engaged with our social partners in bringing important issues to the forefront. While we will not always be on the same page in all matters, the views and ideas are always debated in a fashion that certainly caters to free and frank deliberations. To your membership, we thank you. We may not always stand for the same position, but will always support each other in areas of proper accountability and transparency that is expected from our government and leaders to enable the growth and development of our country. To you, our membership, we thank you for your continued support shown in the work of the Chamber through your continued services on committees and boards. Additionally, your continued voice and challenges to your Chamber is vital to keep us engaged and relevant to you, our membership. As our past president stated in our 2014 speech, she has learned along the way that none of us can leave it to chance. Rather, we all need to pitch in if we want to live in the best Belize possible. So I throw out the challenge to you. Become active, become engaged, participate in the process for the development of Belize. Let us stand together strong, regardless of political persuasion, to forge a way forward to ensure the growth and development of our beloved country. As the late Honorable Philip Golson so famously said, the time to save your country is before you lose it. I thank you and good evening.